Good morning. If you have a chalice with you at home, we invite you to light it with us now. On this weekend, when we pay special attention to the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it feels especially appropriate to light a chalice this morning in memory of his colleague whom we recently lost and an esteemed leader in his own right, the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who said, "To choose hope is to step firmly forward into the howling wind, bearing one's chest to the elements, knowing that in time the storm will pass."
Good morning. As we come together, here's what John Hitzinger said about sacred spaces. There's no distinction whatever between marking out a space for a sacred purpose and marking it out for purposes of sheer play. The turf, the tennis court, the chessboard, and pavement hopscotch cannot formally be distinguished from the temple or the magic circle. So let us be playful. My friends, take a breath. Share the world with your neighbors. Look at the screen, see the people who will be your partners in this voyage this morning, and show them the spirit that you're offering them, and take in the spirit they're offering you. And with that, let us be together.
Please join us in the recitation of our covenant, first in English, then in Spanish. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity and fellowship, thus do we covenant. La doctrina de esta iglesia es el amor, la búsqueda de la verdad, es su sacramento, y el servicio es su oración. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en libertad, servir a la humanidad en comunión. Este es nuestro pacto. Please sing with us now as Kevin Matthey, our music director, performs a well-known song from our hymnal, which was written in honor of the 91st anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It is a little religious, and I am one of the people usually saying, let's not overdo too many songs that talk about God. But on a day like today, it feels appropriate, given especially how this song has grown and grown in popularity lately. So much so that many people today now call it the Black National Anthem. It is hymn number 149 in our hymnal. The lyrics by poet James Weldon Johnson will be posted in the group chat portion of your screen. Please join us in hymn 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith of the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that the tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our past star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray, lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee, lest our hearts drunk with the wine of the world we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, and welcome to this online service of Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church in Canoga Park, a neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. We are in Zoom today, partly out of public health concerns, but also because our guest speaker today, the Rabbi Joshua Gutoff, who shared opening words with us a moment ago, is speaking to us from Philadelphia. And honestly, we were holding our breath about, are we going to be able to pull off a live feed that would broadcast simultaneously on Zoom and in the sanctuary? So here we are. My name is Brian Nelson. I've been a member of this church for nearly 25 years now. And along with our tech associate, David Early, and our music director, Kevin Matthey, and our choir director, Eloise Porter, it is my delight to greet you as your lay leader today. Emerson is one of over 1,000 congregations that are meeting this morning across the U.S. as part of our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This morning, the Reverend Harris Reardon is speaking to the UU Fellowship of Boca Raton, Florida, on finding a place to stand as their state's governor tries to ban discussion of critical race theory in schools. The First Unitarian Society of Ithaca, New York, is hearing from a leader in the UUA, the Reverend Keith Cron, about the status of ministry during the pandemic. And in Tigard, Oregon, the West Hills UU Fellowship, not to be confused with the West Hills that's just down the street, is hearing a sermon from the Reverend Tracy Springberry about the work of Martin Luther King, which is entitled Intention, Active Hope, and Changing the World. And here in Canoga Park, we're also hosting a service inspired by Dr. King, as well as by Archbishop Tutu, entitled Imagining Renewal. Sometimes as the years go by, it feels harder and harder to do justice to the legacy of Dr. King, especially when he's often redefined by people for their own purposes. When I was a child growing up in Maryland, we rarely heard anything about Martin Luther King until after his assassination. And when we did hear something in those earlier days, it often carried just the vaguest feeling of apprehension, as if he were possibly a problem. Shortly, we will see a children's story which simplifies his story, but then it is a piece made for children and performed by a child. What's striking to me is how ordinary people today simplify his story. They found another take on it all. They post in social media about how Dr. King preached love, so why does everybody have to be so upset these days? And meanwhile, certain people are busy dismantling the Civil Rights Act. And those same people are likely this weekend to be sharing Dr. King's words about judging people by the content of their character as if racism were a problem pretty much solved. These parties put forward a safer version of Dr. King's history, which doesn't get around to mentioning how he was spied on by the FBI, or the violence he and his allies faced in Selma on Bloody Sunday, or how his own house was bombed by a white supremacist in 1956, or how those moments parallel some treatment of Black Lives Matter activists today. The quotations that people bring forward about Dr. King don't always include him saying things like, "We must see now that the evils of racism, economic exploitation, and militarism are all tied together." Or that he sometimes felt the biggest challenge his movement faced was perhaps not the KKK, but, quote, "the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice," unquote. This month, our theme for our services is renewal. And toward that end, we are going to talk today about inspiration and imagination and hope. But let's always remember that the messages of Dr. King were many and manifold and clear-eyed about the challenges and problems of the world we face. Emerson UU Church is a welcoming congregation with a 65-year history of engagement on issues ranging from anti-war protests to immigration reform, to marriage equality, to climate change. We acknowledge the Gabrielina, Tongva, and Chumash peoples as the original inhabitants of where our church stands today, which remains part of their lasting identity and heritage. Our existence as a spiritual community can never be fully understood without appreciating the depth of the loss of their land in generations past and the enduring hopes for the renewed vitality of these cultures in years to come. Emerson maintains what we call the living tradition of Unitarian Universalism, in which revelation is not sealed, and you can always make new discoveries about your own beliefs. Recently, we welcomed some new members and we gave them each a copy of the UU Pocket Guide, which is always being updated because guess what? We speak to today. So here it is. Yeah, I picked up my own copy of the new UU Pocket Guide and especially enjoyed the foreword by professor and political commentator Melissa Harris Perry, who writes, "Our faith as Unitarian Universalists is not a specific claim about a particular God. It is not found in a specific book. It does not rely on claims of our inherent specialness as individuals or as a people. Our faith is messier. Our faith is a belief that we can embrace the common good through how we interact with one another by holding fast to our precepts of inclusion, participation, and non-judgmental disagreement. Our faith is a practice of intellectual humility, reminding us of our own limitations. Our faith assures us that we are not alone and that we can be part of something greater than ourselves." Let me quickly say a couple further things about our particular spiritual community for anyone who's new here. Emerson Church is regularly served by our settled minister, the Reverend Matthew McHale, who's currently on sabbatical and will return in late May. During that time, we are happy to welcome our sabbatical minister, Joshua Berg, who preached his first sermon with us last week and whom you'll hear again next week. And as part of an exciting opportunity we have to have 3 sermons in a row preached by guys named Josh, today we will hear again from my old friend, the Rabbi Joshua Gutoff. Josh was ordained as a conservative rabbi, but has spent most of his career as an educator in a variety of non-denominational and interfaith settings. He later received his doctorate in Jewish education, focusing on the development of the moral imagination. A teacher and occasional writer, he is part of the Jewish Studies faculty at Barak Hebrew Academy in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. Josh and I met many years ago as undergrads when we were both cast in a play about lunatics. So we will leave it to you to decide whether anything has changed in all that time. Some of you will remember when Josh delivered a homily to us in the fall of 2020 about the meaning of Rosh Hashanah. I'm so happy to be able to welcome him back to Emerson. If you're attending for the first time, I want to invite you to sign our virtual guest book. You will find the link in the chat. Signing it will ensure that you receive our e-blast updates, letting you know about various upcoming activities, from social justice and environmental events to virtual committee meetings, book group meetings, and more. Typically, when we have our in-person services, we invite you, especially if you're new, to join us in our pavilion for refreshments and conversation and connection. Obviously, we can't invite you today to our brick and mortar pavilion, but after the service, we'll break up into a few randomly assigned Zoom rooms. So prepare your coffee or tea, and after the service, please feel free to join us for our Zoom social hour. We may all be physically separated, but we can still find comfort and connection together. That said, we're probably overdue for a break from me talking. So let me now share the following story for all ages, which is performed by Rabbi Novak, who is also known as Kid President.
Once upon a time, there's a man named Martin Luther King Jr. It's funny to think about because now we know his name so well, but at one time he was just a kid. Like maybe you're a kid watching this. Well, he was a kid too. Well, maybe you're a grown-up. That's okay too. Former kids are welcome here. I don't discriminate. Martin Luther King grew up to be a great man, of course, but things weren't all that great in the world while he was growing up. Not everybody was treated like they were somebody. And I believe that you should treat everybody like it's their birthday. But they didn't do that. People looked at the color of their skin. And that's how they decided if they were friends or not. Not cool, man. That didn't make him feel good. That didn't make anybody feel good. But his parents helped him grow up. He went to church. He learned about love. He grew up to be a minister to help a lot of people. He did all sorts of cool stuff. He helped a lot of people learn about love too. But still, he looked around and said, things should be better. He wanted to change things, so he did stuff. He decided, instead of spreading the hate, he would spread the love. He wanted to bring people together. Where people were hurting, he stepped in to help. He marched with them, he walked with them. He walked arm in arm with everyone. And sometimes it didn't go well, but he kept going. Sometimes he ended up in prison, but he kept going. Some people didn't like him, but he kept going. Some days were hard, but he kept going. Love does that, it just keeps going, even when things are dark. And, well, I don't like this part of the story, but things did get pretty dark. Someone who didn't agree with him shot him. He died in April 1968. Now, kid president, why are you telling us this sad story? Come on. I know it. I'm sorry, but it happened. I don't like that happened. Now, I gotta tell you something. When things aren't awesome, it can be tough. And things will always be awesome, but your response can be. Martin Luther King's response? It was awesome. Today, I just wanted us to think about this. Isn't it cool that we can change things? Like any of us, anybody. He dreamed and he changed things. And he dreamed and he kept sharing his dreams. They became not just his dream, a lot of people's dream. Like this one. I have a dream that little black boys and black girls will join hands with white boys and white girls and become sisters and brothers. That's a pretty good dream. Let's dream like that. That could change things. Once upon a time.
And now we'll do our unison affirmation, which we do after our story for all ages. And you can even do all the gestures that we typically do with our kids. The words appear on your screen. Thing that's always alive to me is we want this to look like a U, not just like, oh, my hands. No, no, we're making a U here, okay? So here we go. We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands. Part of our open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands are the many activities that we conduct at Emerson beyond Sunday mornings, which are supported by our offertory. These activities include everything from our pagan circle to plant-based Los Angeles, from our book group to our environmental justice ministry, from our elders circle to our small group ministries. And today it's particularly appropriate to make special mention of our Widening the Circle task force. One of the sources that we cite as UUs for our faith is, this is the wording you may have seen in our hymnal, quote, words and deeds of prophetic men and women which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Okay, pretty clear. As part of that work, our Widening the Circle task force is exploring ways to implement the proposed 8th principle for our UA, which our congregation has endorsed and which reads, we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. You can watch for task force announcements or meetings in our weekly e-blast. And if you look in the chat, Linda Beth Nelson, no relation to me, has already posted information about both the task force and about the fact that on Tuesday, January 17th at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Congresswoman Karen Bass will be the guest speaker online for the Interfaith Solidarity Network, speaking about interfaith engagement with the legacy of Martin Luther King. That's for an hour online this Tuesday morning at 8:30 a.m. You can find details again at interfaithsolidaritynetwork.org and also right now in our chat. This is all, of course, everything at Emerson, which is supported by individual time and talent, and also your Sunday donations, as well as annual pledges. You'll see instructions on your screen for how to donate. For the rest of the month, we still use the Give Plus mobile app. We'll be changing to another mode in February, but Give Plus is still working this month. You can also use the old-fashioned method and just mail a check directly through the U.S. Postal Service to the Emerson office. So let's take time now to share in the strength of this congregation as we listen to our offertory, and then following the song, we'll join in our group response for the offering, the words for which will appear on screen.
receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
I now light this candle of caring as we enter that portion of our service where we share our lives and our hearts with each other more deeply. Join me in the prayer on your screens. We light this candle in honor of all those working on the front lines, in hospitals and nursing homes, grocery stores and gas stations. We light this candle to send our love to those dying in isolation, especially those whom we know and those who are loved by those we know. We light this candle to send our love to all those grieving alone. We light this candle in recognition of the enormity of this pandemic's impact on each of us, on those we love, on everyone, especially those already challenged by poverty, racism, transphobia, ableism, xenophobia. We light this candle in grief, in honor, in recognition, in love. We are in this together. We manifest our beloved community in many ways. Prime among them is the sharing of our personal milestones. In a moment, I'll read joys and sorrows that have been submitted online. If you didn't have a chance to submit one in our virtual book of life, please feel free to write your joy or sorrow in the chat. And with every name or comment that is written in the chat, I will drop a stone into this water in recognition of the ripples that emanate from each thought. I'll begin with expressing thanks and relief for the safety of the hostages that were being held yesterday at Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville, Texas, who have survived that ordeal and been reunited with their congregation and their loved ones. I also share these comments in the Book of Life from Pamela Randall, who writes, I am so very grateful for Martin Luther King. From Pierre Brogan, who writes, joy that my girlfriend's mom, Rosalina, has been successfully treated for her ovarian cancer and downgraded from stage 4 to stage 1. And Linda Beth Nelson writes, happy birthday to Joshua Berg, our sabbatical minister. And I'll continue with these stones during the next few moments. I ask you to hold these joys and sorrows in your hearts, as well as always those which are yet too tender to be put forth. Let's take a moment now for meditation with Rabbi Joshua.
Hello. Let's take a moment just to get settled in our chairs. Find yourself comfortable, and let me invite you to close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, just pay attention to your body, to how it's feeling, how all the parts are. And if there's any part of you that needs attention, that needs a little care, send out some warmth to those parts of your body that might need a little warmth. And then when you've done that, let your attention grow a little bit. And think of the people closest to you, maybe those you live with, those you depend on, those who depend on you, and bring your attention to them. See each one of them in your mind and send them some warmth, each one. And then, as though your attention were an expanding balloon, push it out further to take in your friends, your neighbors, those people you encounter, people you work with, and send some warmth to them. And we'll make one more effort to expand our circle of attention as far as we think it can go. And even if you can't see each one individually, feel yourself encompassing all of those you can reach. And in your mind, send each of them some warmth. Let's take a moment and do this together. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. I'd like to share with you the morning poem by Mary Oliver. And it's also reading number 536 in your hymnal. So if you have a hymnal to hand and want to read along, please join in. Every morning the world is created. Under the orange sticks of the sun, the heaped ashes of the night turn into leaves again and fasten themselves to the high branches, and the ponds appear like black cloth on which are painted islands of summer lilies. If it is your nature to be happy, you will swim away along the soft trails for hours, your imagination alighting everywhere. And if your spirit carries within it the thorn that is heavier than lead, if it's all you can do to keep on trudging, there is still, somewhere deep within you, a beast shouting that the earth is exactly what it wanted. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered lavishly every morning, whether or not you have ever dared to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to pray.
Now it's my pleasure to honor the Emerson Choir. When we meet in person, we don't usually mention all the choir members by name because we can see them perfectly well, and we can lean over later and say to our friend, I didn't recognize him. Who is that person on the right? But I'm told this video will list everyone involved, so I'm super happy about that. Led by our choir director, Eloise Porter, here is the Emerson Choir singing the civil rights classic, Keep Your Eyes on the Prize.
Freedom plow, won't give nothing for my journey. Got my hand on the freedom plow, won't give nothing for my journey now. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. We fought jail and violence too, but God's love has seen us through. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Work all day and work all night, trying to gain our civil rights. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. The only chain that a man can stand is the chain of a hand in hand. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. The only thing that we did wrong, stayed in the wilderness a day too long. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. But the one thing we did right was the day we started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on.
Wow, thank you, Eloise, and thank you to the choir. What a powerful way to begin the day. And thank you all for inviting me to join you this morning. And I feel very welcome and very comfortable to be with you here, though at the same time, almost a little fraudulent, as though I'm pretending to be something I'm not. But I'm used to that by now. And it goes way back many years ago. I was sitting in another interfaith setting. This one was a group of my clergy colleagues in the town where I was the rabbi of a small congregation. Our meeting opened that month with the question, who do you see when you pray? And I have to tell you, I was at a loss. The Catholics, the Episcopalians, the Methodists, the Evangelical, the Unitarian pulpit was vacant then. Everyone seemed not only to know whom they were in contact with, but had a direct and certain connection with their God. Even the Congregationalist minister, a progressive graduate of Harvard Divinity, and my closest friend said, I couldn't get through the day if I didn't have Jesus with me. It was clear to me that there was a whole dimension I didn't have access to. And I realize that's odd to be reminded of just when I want to be thinking of the extraordinary legacies of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, two figures who helped change the world in ways that might not have seemed possible even 10 years before. With courage and vision, with persistence and endurance, they and their colleagues and comrades and communities helped tear a hole in the very fabric of oppressive realities to allow room for new and potentially redemptive realities to replace them. But underlying their courage and vision, behind the persistence and endurance, was a profound religious faith. Early on during the Montgomery bus boycott, receiving multiple death threats every day, Dr. King turned to God in near despair. It seemed as though I could hear the quiet assurance of an inner voice saying, Martin Luther, stand up for righteousness, stand up for justice, stand up for truth, and lo, I will be with you, even until the end of the world. I tell you, I heard the voice of Jesus saying still to fight on. He promised never to leave me alone. At that moment, I experienced the presence of the divine as I had never experienced him before. Almost at once, my fears began to go. My uncertainty dropped. I was ready to face anything. That's faith. The activism of Archbishop Tutu as well was rooted in his sense of assurance that God loved all humanity equally and infinitely. There is nothing you can do to make God love you less, absolutely nothing, for God already loves you and will love you forever, he wrote. God's love is for us and our love for others. God's love for us and our love for others is the single greatest motivating force in the world, the Archbishop said. And this love and the good it creates will always triumph over hatred and evil. That too is faith. Influenced by Christian mystics, he was a mystic himself. But when a student asked me years ago if my love for God had grown over time, all I could do was respond to her that one of the great regrets of my life was that I never became the mystic I always imagined I would be. To be honest, I think there wasn't just regret on my part, but a kind of fear that my lack of belief wasn't just making me miss out on a personal experience, but that it represented a loss of a way of being, that they were important life tools I had no access to. Here's what I mean. There's a wonderful line from the Jewish liturgy that God is hamechadesh betuvo bechol yom tamid ma'asev reshit, that God, through God's own goodness, every day renews the work of creation. Can we sit with that for a moment? What would it be like to get up in the morning, look at the world around you and believe, this isn't old. This didn't have to be. God starts anew every day. If you believed that the world doesn't run on momentum, that each day God invited us back to the toolbox, how would that change your life? Perhaps if I had that faith, then I too could be new. I could recreate myself differently, perhaps, better this time, and I could recreate the world as well. And at that point, I have to pause. It's hard enough to believe that the universe was created once, but every day? No, I say sadly, I can't go along with that. But there's good reason to think that the rabbis didn't go along with that either. That is, they were not presenting it as a statement about the physical world out there and how it was. They were offering it as a possibility of how we might be, an invitation to see the world as being full of promise. That see suggests that you're picking up on something that's really there. A better word is imagine, to bring to the mind's eye precisely what is not yet there, which is a strange turn for a religious discipline to take, because if faith is the certainty that things unseen exist, what I am suggesting is seeing things for which there is no certainty at all. In fact, religious practice is all about the imagination. It's been so since, well, the beginning. Take in the Jewish tradition of the Sabbath. By having a day in the week when we're not doing business, when we're not trying to change the world, we can imagine a world that was, in the words of the Bible, very good, even if we don't know if we believe it. By saying a psalm or singing a hymn, I can imagine myself as a pious person or a good person or a righteous person and see what that feels like. I'm not trying to fool anyone with these, not even myself. But I might find that in the act of imagining, I can discover a way that I might really be a little bit better. Just as in imagining that the world is open for renewal, I might find a way of playing a part in that renewal. But isn't it disrespectful or dishonest to treat the sacred as just a game? Just a game? Have you seen people at play? I'm not even talking about sports or other competitions, but any kind of make-believe. Play isn't random. Play isn't arbitrary. For a game to work, it has to make sense, if only within its own vision. And it's that inner logic of play that allows it to become beautiful. And it's at that point where serious play meets serious craft that a game becomes art. And just as with any art, we are responsible for the choices we make, the games we play, the worlds we imagine. It is up to us to judge them. Is the world I am choosing to construct good? Is it beautiful? Is it kind? Is it just? And something else. Games require commitment. Maybe to envision God renewing the world every day is to realize that creation has to be addressed every day, because nothing persists without constant, continual effort. This imaginative renewal may be a game, but it's a serious one. It is indeed the long game, but that's okay. The long game is where we want to be. As we imagine ourselves as different, as better, as kinder, we can try on those persona as though playing dress up with our own character. And you know what? No one can make us stop pretending to be the kind parent, the wise teacher, the healer of the wounded. So at that meeting with my colleagues, I couldn't tell them about the God I saw, the God I knew, because there wasn't a God I saw. There wasn't a God I knew. What I said was this: my prayers are like arrows I shoot towards a target just beyond the horizon. That is how I still pray. And maybe there is nothing over the horizon. But my aim is getting better. My focus is getting more secure. And maybe the world needs more archers.
Thank you, Josh. As we move forward in our lives today and continue to imagine renewal, let's carry with us this closing hymn, which is one of our favorites here at Emerson and which rather perfectly embodies imagining renewal. It's performed here by Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout, currently Director of Worship Arts for the First Universalist Church of Minneapolis. When you see on your screen the initials SLT, it might take you a second, like me, to recall, oh no, that's the name of our hymnal. SLT is Singing the Living Tradition. Here from that hymnal is hymn 396, I Know This Rose Will Open.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know, 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 I know. I know, 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 I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul, I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose, I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul will unfurl my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose, I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul, I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose, I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul will unfurl my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose, I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. Unfurl its wings. I know this rose, I know this rose, I know this rose. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. Unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open, 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 fear will open. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
Well, I feel open. I want to thank you all. I want to particularly thank Brian for welcoming me and inviting me. I thank David for making this all possible, making this happen, and Kevin and Eloise and all of you, because we can't do this by ourselves. So wherever you are, reach out your virtual arms, give the hands of those you've been with a virtual squeeze, turn to each other, and as you go out to make sacred art out of your world, say to each other, as I say to you, thank you for your help. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for your art. Shalom, salam, namaste, alleluia, and blessed be.
Well, that was a little abrupt, but hang on there and we will start our virtual Zoom rooms momentarily.
Sorry about that, everybody. I got to really be careful with the mouse, as you saw. We almost got through two complete playings, almost. Hold on, I got to.